Hey Tiff.
Hey Chris, you okay?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, how are you?
All the better for seeing you, Chris, you know? All right, let's start that again. No. Sounds weird.
So what we
Right.
thought we would talk about tonight was the CV virus, but obviously we don't want to talk about all the measures and all the things that everyone already knows about that's in place. But you
No.
were talking to me the other day about the impacts that it's having, like in a positive way on society, or either on society or on individually. And obviously, this whole different way of life we've suddenly been thrust into is something that we're all learning. But that, there are some things. So I think it'd be worth just going through that topic, isn't it? Just have a talk through, and let's try and pull out and celebrate some of the positive things that might come out of this and that are happening today.
Yeah. And I think in times of extreme pressure or when we feel under stress, you know, our mental well-being in that is obviously an issue. And I think for me personally, when I find myself in situations like that, I often try to think about it's something I took from my mum. My mum always does it. She always says, well, what is the positive that you can take from that?
Yeah.
And I suppose so my mind naturally looks for those things, and clearly this is a really bad situation, but I kind of start to think about what am I noticing that's different. I mean, it's a very different way our society is operating. It was unexpected, and people are kind of drawn now into accepting quite a different way of working and of doing things, and so I suppose I've reflected recently, and I think some of the benefits that I've noticed is, well, first of all, I think time with my family. Working in an office, so you're commuting to a building, you leave early in the morning, you don't have time often to have breakfast together or to probably do anything apart from everybody's getting out of the house in the morning. It's quite a panicked and sort of a time-bound thing to get kids off to school, to get you off to work, and all of a sudden when that's gone, you find that time. And I suppose throughout the day, being able to see your family a little bit more, it kind of brings a sense of well-being. I don't know if you found that at all.
Yeah, I think so I'm in a slightly different situation because I had already chosen to go it alone, so to speak, go self-employed. So but certainly one of the decisions that led me to doing that was to try to cut the commute out of my life, to spend more time at home. So I've kind of been doing that anyway, so I wouldn't say that was necessarily preparing me for Corona, but I certainly noticed that was one thing that did notice, actually almost straight away when I stopped commuting. And it's not just that you've got 2 extra hours in the day, but you've got more quality time.
Yeah, that's true.
At home, and you just organise your day a little bit differently. And that's a big benefit. And I think a lot of people work from home anyway, as a matter of course.
Yes.
And so I think a lot of people who've done that will have experienced that. There's a whole heap of people who have just experienced that for the first time.
And I do kind of feel, the standard working hours that you would typically see on a contract of employment. I think, in practice, when you find yourself with this additional time, you end up kind of logging on earlier anyway. And so from a productivity point of view for a company, I think you probably get more discretionary effort anyway from employees, in terms of that. That commute's not there, so what are you going to do? You sit around until 8:30 or 9 o'clock until your time to, sometimes you just think, well, I may as well log on, prepare for my day.
Yeah.
So,
And then
so
I think one of the things that might be the whole notion of, you know, the 9 to 5, which is the classic thing, which I don't think is bound by, because every single business has found that their maximum revenue and productivity comes from having working hours between 9 and 5, or even a certain amount of working hours in a day. That's
yeah.
just become the society norm for how we organise. But clearly, in this connected world, no one's been working 9 till 5 anyway.
No, that's not the reality anyway.
For a long, long time.
No.
So this has finally perhaps cut the cord of that hangover from a time that was very in the distant past, when
It's
9 to 5.
I mean, it's quite draconian, really, in a way, isn't it? That somebody would be expected to sit there between 9 and 5, and you expect to get the best out of somebody in that time. I think people have their life to fit around that, and actually, if you want to get the best out of people, even outside of these times as they are now, being able to pop off for an appointment or go and see your son or daughter's play and then come back and do a few more hours. It's an adult way of working, I think, and I think that's what we've suddenly seen. There's a whole lot of trust now that needs to be given to individuals, that maybe that is what, as you say, cutting the cord, so to speak, around the 9 to 5, being in the building. All of a sudden we're trusting our employees to work remotely. We can't see what they're doing, but now we're needing to focus on outputs. Interesting.
Yeah, I was thinking about this earlier on, actually, because a lot of people, because you think, how do you productivity is very difficult to measure anyway, and we've had at the macro level, we've had a productivity problem for about 3 decades at least in general, but I think it's hard for an employer to measure productivity after this period, because productivity is down anyway, i.e. in the general economy productivity is depressed, so you can't actually measure the benefit of everyone collectively working at home during this period, because everything, you won't be able to detect it in your balance sheet or your P&L or whatever. So, but I think that general thing of trust it, and it does actually occur to me, as you're saying, of course, this only applies to jobs that you and I have done or are used to, and a lot of people are, which is what, in quotes, office-based jobs. Clearly there are jobs where if you're working in retail, or you're cutting hair, or you're doing something else, you have an opening time and a closing time, or a shift pattern, and you have to be there at that time and go at that time. You can't just pop out to the dentist halfway through the shift or whatever. Yes. So we are talking specifically about a segment of the working population, not obviously all the roles. But it is interesting that within that segment, which is a large segment, of course, I mean, maybe that's most people's experience of work, actually, that we do seem to have had this draconian view that you have to be in your place and be seen to be in your place in order to get on, whatever that might mean in your context.
Yes.
So I think, I mean, the changes, the sudden shift in, and as I say, I've spent almost all my working career in the office environment, apart from the last 6 months prior to this, when I've been working at home. So I kind of got an earlier introduction to some of those things, but now that most people have got to take that, I get that. So people will want to do that. Whether employers will want to do that's the unknown question, because I think they're not going to really know whether working at home is more productive or not from this experiment, so to speak, because of the.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's not really. You're not going to see probably a very positive outcome initially, but I think to a longer term view, I think that could we ever really go back from this, is my question in my mind. Now, we've enabled people to work in a home environment, roles that traditionally haven't always, we wouldn't have considered doing that for. I remember having a conversation a couple of years ago around whether we could put contact centre roles from home.
Yeah.
And the decision at the time was, it wasn't something that the business was prepared to do, for a variety of reasons. But now I see another business, and we see businesses across the UK that have enabled their people to deal with customers from their home environment. They've got systems to be able to do that. And there's an interesting shift, I think. When you look at the talent pool when you're recruiting staff, and I think a lot of the things that we need to consider around that is, what is the talent pool within a particular geographic area? But if you enable somebody to work from home in just as a productive way as they can do in the office, then all of a sudden you widen the talent pool, you widen the talent area that you can recruit from, and I think that's an interesting concept. I think it's something that people will feel more comfortable that it is possible in the future. Now, I can't see that we would forget that we've been able to do this.
No, I think I'd agree, and any technology that comes along can never be rolled back. I mean, so I'm old enough to remember when I first started work, there was no internet, right? At work, it was just. I mean, in my first 3 years, I didn't even have a PC on my desk. That's kind of, it seems, like what would we actually doing? And we were writing and dictating into machines, but. Anyway, when I first came across the internet at work was when I worked at Orange in '96, I think it was. And that was the first time that we had an internet connection. And it was kind of introduced, and, it was never going to be, and no one could ever see the point of it, kind of thing, from a business perspective. It was thought that everyone just wanted it to, do whatever you could do on the internet at that time, which was very limited compared to today. But of course, it didn't ever, because we didn't ever go back to the old way of working. We never got the dictaphones out again. We didn't, we put away the pens and paper, and we started to work in a different way. And, that's the role of technology ever since has pushed that. And this push of technology into the home, you can't undo that now. You can't say we've I mean, one of the companies that I've been involved with, Pure Planet, which is a new company, so it can build itself differently, but that was built from the beginning to be virtual. And it worked out very well when we moved offices last year, because everyone had to work at home for 4 days just because of the way it worked. And the whole business was actually working remote for 4 days. And that was a good test of the systems, and actually a very good test for what they're doing today. So let me ask you another question then, which is, so I get the convenience things, and we're still in a bit of a honeymoon period. So, that's great. How would you feel though, if you don't see your colleagues, or you only ever see your colleagues like this through Zoom or whatever, and I'm guessing there's more Zoom calls and face-to-face calls like that, but without actually going to the office and actually interacting with your colleagues, which clearly you can do in a different way. How do you feel about not doing that, after 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks?
So, okay, what do I think about that? So I've reflected a lot on this actually recently, because all of my team are actually based in a different location to me. And I work from home predominantly. I tend to go down to see them once a week. And I think what this has made me reflect on is actually my leadership style, or what is it that actually makes a leader effective, and some of the things that that I come back to are probably things like, am I setting a clear vision for my team? Do they have clear goals? Are we able to communicate effectively? And on demand when they need me as well. And I think things like trust and empowerment, and actually what do I need from them is, we want to work collectively to get to an output. Do I need to physically see them every day getting to that output, or do I need to see you know, what the output is. How do I reward them? How do I motivate them? And I suppose what it's made me think about is, and you know, you could argue that being based remotely, some of these things probably, you know, could have come to the forefront before for me. But this particular scenario was how it made me really reflect on how can I use technology for that. So, you know, it's made me do things like put in regular checkpoints via video for my team, which we didn't have before. You know, turning the video on so we can see each other is really important. I think them knowing that I'm there for them as well, so making sure that, you know, I've stated that, and that they can connect with me when they need to is important. And could they always connect with me? Could they connect with me just as easily via video or via a call as they could if I was in the office? My answer to that in my mind is probably yes. You know, it's not any different from that perspective. I think I reflect upon actually that trust element, and so we're doing an exercise very shortly when we're kind of reviewing everything that we're doing. This is not my suggestion, this is someone in my team's suggestion, so we're reviewing everything we're doing from a proposition point of view now and where we might want to take that in the future, and my team have led that discussion. So we're doing some sessions over Skype over the next kind of week, just reviewing different aspects of how we do things, so we can come up with some well, certainly a vision of where we want to take things moving forward, and also then what the shorter term goals are that we want to kind of achieve within that. And we're doing that all via video conference, and I think you know, that's important as well. You know, having everybody having a clear view of where we're heading, coming together to discuss that, which we are going to do online. You know, we are going to have some clear projects for people to work on, some clear goals, and people will be able to use Microsoft Teams. So somebody is you know, said to me recently that, you know, this situation has really kind of put them into a situation where they've had to learn the functionality of Teams. We've had it as a business for quite some time, and have we actually used that functionality very well? You know, we didn't really know what all the different functionality was until recently. We started to do all sorts of things on there. So I think that, no, I don't have to be in the office to be able to lead my people in an effective way. Have I thought that I needed to previously? Probably, to a certain degree. I think, you know, spending the £150 on the train ticket that my company does, you know, every time I go down to the office, you know, once a week, you know, I spend 2.5 hours commuting there, 2.5 hours commuting back. You know, a limited time in the office, really. How much impact does that have in comparison to what I've just described we're doing now? I don't know. I don't think that it has as much.
So I get that your team, and you were working perhaps a little bit in that way with a split team anyway, or a multi-site team. But what about so that's you managing a team, but what about the, you know, your stakeholders and your other departments, and, you know, the wider team that you interact with? Do you feel that, you know, you can, because in some sense, if you're the team manager, you can set the culture and set that expectation within your team, and that can work however you want it to work. But you can't necessarily enforce that culture across all your other stakeholders. And would that, you know, does that still work as effectively in this period? Well, I guess we'll see over the next few weeks.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, because I suppose, you know, this situation makes us look at how we communicate, and the amount of meetings before kind of the lockdown was in place, that suddenly we thought, well, could we do this virtually? And we start to see that shift over time. I'm very fortunate to work for a company that's quite forward thinking in terms of their use of technology, that hasn't always been used to its full effect. Probably not always in the past. You know, there's probably face-to-face meetings that we would have done that could have been done quite easily virtually. So we're starting to see a shift to more and more people. Well, we've seen, you know, a shift now because everybody is working from home. So I think that it takes, what is it, 3 weeks to form a habit.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
I wonder. That's what people suggest anyway. So I think, you know, this period that we're spending now working, finding different ways of working with each other. Again, I think it would be. I don't think we're just going to go back from that. I think we're having an awakening here to actually what we can do.
I think that's the key thing, isn't it? It's not, and it isn't. Clearly, we're not going to be just 3 weeks. It's going to be 3 months, right? So,
yeah.
So as a minimum. So even if because all parts of the business are forced to work like this, you will be engaging with the business isn't going to stop. So you will be forced to work like this with other teams, and then it's going to feel weird trying to go back to the old way, in quotes.
Yeah, and something I've noticed as well, Chris, is that so we've got my team, but then we've got a wider resourcing team as well. So something that I've noticed is that we're spending more time together as a wider team. We used to do that probably quarterly, but now we're actually doing that a lot more frequently, virtually. I suppose as a leadership team, we've needed to think about actually how can we make sure people are not, you know, we need to think about people's well-being, and the fact that, you know, we might have people in places that aren't, you know, with other family members, they might be isolated, and so we've had to think about actually how can we make sure that people are you know, feeling part of the wider team. They're still getting the social interaction they would get in the workplace. And something that we've kind of looked at doing is building kind of like, we've done this thing in the evening where we've done this lady in our team has put together a quiz session, so we've all done like a pub quiz in the evening together, which is quite nice. Next week we're trialing something else, which is a buddy system. So the agenda is just to spend half an hour with someone that you don't normally spend a lot of time with, because you're not normally based in that office, just to find out about them, really. And just to discuss kind of you as a person, so to build those meaningful connections. And it makes you wonder why didn't we do that before? But
well, you did do it before, but much more ad hoc. You do it when you just meet in the corridor, or you do it in the canteen, or you are doing those things without really knowing that you're doing them.
For those people in that location, yes, but our team's based across 4 different locations. Actually. It's an interesting one, isn't it? So we're starting to build better relationships as a team, which can only bring benefit, I think. And I've done this thing as well, I'm very so I think I'm very kind of mindful of the well-being of the people in our team, and particularly at the moment, you know, I think stress and anxiety and depression, they've always been a very hot topic anyway. Is that 1 in 6 people suffer from some sort of mental health condition, and it's always been you know, a source of discussion for HR teams in all of the companies that I've worked with. How can we better support people with these sorts of illnesses? I'm quite passionate about it. I think that you know, supporting the well-being of an employee is actually really important, because, you know, they work for you, and there's a sense of responsibility that goes with that to make sure that they're okay. And I think something that I've put into place over the last week has been some lunchtime mindfulness medals. Can't get my words out. Mindfulness meditation sessions. So it's a new thing for a lot of people in our team that potentially not come across it before. and the short 10-minute calls, just focused on actually different techniques that come with that. And people have taken a lot of benefit from that. They've spoken about how relaxed they felt. They didn't realise they were holding so much tension and stress, and just makes you think, actually, is there more that we can do as a line manager or a leadership member of the leadership team to actually help people to feel supported with mental health and wellbeing. And obviously it's a really big focus for us at the moment, but it always is, but we've not necessarily done things like this before.
Well, we've had to actually do it now, rather than it just being a kind of a thing that we want to tick a box for. We have to actually make sure we are, because there are the wider concerns that are going around society beyond your job are playing on people's minds, apart from and being in this enforced isolation. So we actually have to turn it into reality now, the taking care of mental health in the workplace. So it's very much a part of it. It's not just a nice optional thing. It's something that we actually have to do in the workplace, because we're in this collective situation that no one knows how to react to.
So and I suppose I think some reflections that I've had as well is that I don't know about you, but I've been reconnecting with people that I haven't spoken to for ages. I don't know, people are just kind of checking in, calling, people that are probably, they're so busy with their life typically day to day, that maybe they haven't had the time to do that. But I find myself phoning people that I think, gosh, I should have phoned this person ages ago. I haven't really checked in with them. So I suppose re-establishing like human connections with people that you care about, or people that you haven't spoken to for a long time. When you find yourself in a situation where you create time for that, because you're not commuting to work, because you can take a lunch break, and actually when you finish work you've got a much longer evening to you've created that time there. You find yourself connecting with people, and that's good for your well-being as well, isn't it? It's good for your work-life balance.
Yeah, it is. I think I don't know whether that's a symptom of the general. I mean, it's great that because we're in this situation, there's more of a general concern and more connection going on. That might, whether that remains after Corona, will be, we'll see. We may quickly forget that we need to connect with people and just go back to doing our own thing. However, some of the other things might still be in place that you talked about. If ways of working fundamentally shift, maybe that just creates the space that society needs to create those. The extra downtime, dead space, is filled with human connection, which would be a nice legacy to have from this situation.
Yeah, it's interesting. You take away the ability to physically connect with people, but personally, I'm experiencing an increase of okay, it's virtual, but it's definitely more human connection, which is interesting. I've just noticed that, and it will be interesting to see if that does continue after this all settles down. So
overall, you're positive on the working from home thing then, and you're positive on some of those, at least some of that practice remaining after Corona. It seems to be an issue.
Well, I know you go out for a walk every day anyway, don't you? But something that I've noticed as well is that all of a sudden I'm building in, at least an hour's worth of exercise every day, which have I before? Probably not. So that's a positive thing in itself. You see everybody kind of walking around in their groups of two, social distancing, but they're all out having exercise. So actually the health of people generally from doing that is probably it's going to have a positive impact.
And people are a lot more conscious of it. Apart from the fact that it's like everyone's under house arrest, and that's their period of walking around the yard or whatever it is. So, but people are a lot more conscious that they need to do that, and hopefully they'll remember to do that.
I've also noticed that a lot of companies are, creating webinars or learning opportunities for people. So, so I've created a channel at work where I'm posting all of these things so that the team can take advantage of them. So that's interesting. That we're able to focus on our own sort of personal development and capability. So, that's going to potentially positively impact businesses moving forward. I think that I've specifically found myself with a lot more time to look at my own personal development anyway. I'm starting to get sick of the TV, read books. Not done that for a while. I do read books, but probably not as much as I listen to audiobooks or watch YouTube or the TV and that kind of stuff. So I think, picking up books and reflecting on the things that I wanted to learn and develop in this year, I found time to do that, which is a positive thing, I think.
Good. Well, that's at least that's you. I mean, it's interesting to hear those few early experiences of your working experience, and let's check in a few weeks' time where we, because it will evolve, this situation that none of us really know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to see what does, and of course then to see in longer time what actually sticks, what does remain, because I think some of it will, and some of it will, we will revert. I think the proof of the pudding for me is going to be whether the productivity can be seen from remote distributed working, as we rebuild, especially as we rebuild our economy. Maybe rebuilding it with fewer staff or whatever else, but I think that there will be the benefits that are coming out of the human connection. Some of those elements will remain for sure, and that's what we need to try and capture now, so we remember it to keep those in our policies going forward.
Think of our carbon footprint, that's going to be decreasing significantly, and the impact on the
environment.
We
don't need to go down the M4 in our cars all the time just to go to a 2-hour meeting with somebody that didn't produce anything. So I think there's a lot of waste that will certainly get cut out of society, which is going to be a positive thing for both environment and our time. So good. Okay. Well, let's dwell on those, and let's talk again in a few weeks.
Fabulous. Nice to speak to you, Chris.
Okay.
And I'll speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon.
See you.
Bye. Tiff. Bye.